now in the studio with me, I have our first guest, Miss Twyla Garrett, and she is a serial entrepreneur. She is a huge government contractor. She has done so many amazing things in her business. She also happens to be one of my dearest friends.
Absolutely.
So I got to tell you, Twyla, I'm so excited for you to be here all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina.
That's right.
To be here in the studio with us live.
Thank you.
And so tell me, Twyla, you have done a lot. You have been in business since 1996, and you have started your second business, which was focused on government contracting.
True, and now I'm on to my seventh business.
Oh gosh, all right, but wait a minute. We got to roll back because I want to talk to you about your government contracting business. So you started it in 2000.
Started it in 2000. I sold in 2016.
Okay, but you cut out some stuff because you grew it to like over 25 million.
Yeah, it was a pretty large brand. So
right.
I was a Homeland Security disaster preparedness expert. I still am an expert. And what I was able to do is I came from the government. So I used to be a deputy comptroller in Native North Island, which was with the Navy. I also was an FMS, foreign military salesperson with the government. And so I got to a point where there was a glass ceiling. So I left. I actually turned my business, and within 3 weeks, took myself from a business of about 0 to about 210K. in revenue and sales in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks?
In 3 weeks.
You must be a bad sales
I'm a
lady.
bad sister. I am.
You must be a bad sales lady.
I was, and the thing was that I realized that my value was better served outside of the government than inside the government. Not that the government did me wrong, but selling to the government is difficult. And the one thing I did is had about 7.5 to 8 years of experience doing it. So I had perfected a little bit about writing proposals, looking at, the target markets, making sure your niche is what you focus on instead of going all over the place. And that's what we did. And so my niche was numbers. My niche was economic analysis. My niche was, balancing budgets for large commands. And so when I came out, my very first contract was doing economic analysis for the Navy on a command-based closure and a shrinkage. And so it was an easy fit. And then, within months, I was able to actually secure another contract. But the only way you secure it is by writing for it. Sure. Yeah. So when people want to get into government contracting, I tell them you've got to be able to understand that the cycle time is so much longer than anything on the private side.
Right. You're talking about your sales cycle.
Exactly.
Right?
So you got to have a pipeline that's literally probably around 2 to 3 years long.
Okay.
And in some cases, it might go longer. I remember winning a bid. I actually was so excited through the win party and didn't get awarded the damn contract until almost 13 months later. And then guess what? Somebody protested it.
Oh no.
So all that work, the celebration, the party, the people, for naught. Because the protest happened and the government decided not to even award it again.
Wow.
They kept the business inside. So when you look at the government, it's a great option for those individuals that have that time. But in order to get into that game, what they have to also do is be able to seriously sit down and look at their marketing strategy and make sure the marketing strategy matches their life strategy. Okay. Because if you got 2 years to wait for a win, and then, in the light right now where there's so many competitors, one person can protest and throw everything and derail it. Wow. And you can get into the programs. I chose personally not to be in any of the economic disadvantage programs for almost 15 years of business.
Wow.
So I was registered as a woman-owned business, but I didn't get an 8A until I was in year 15 of business. And within year 16, I sold.
Wow.
So, there were strategies behind that. One of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure we could compete. One of the things with some of the 8A companies is that they really rely heavily on getting those contracts. And when they get them, they don't necessarily understand how to really win them. And so if you can't win them, you're not going to stay in business when the 8A program goes away in 8 to 9 years.
Wow, okay.
So those were some of the things that I learned. But overall, the government is a great entry point because they are the largest producer and seller of goods for us.
Right.
But you got to understand that cycle. So
you just said that this is your 7th business that you're on now.
Absolutely.
Now, and you're in a contracting business now, right?
I own a construction firm and I also own an independent adjusting firm. And so contracting is a little different. We're a licensed GC out of Raleigh. We have an amazing partner, Skanska. We're a mentor protege under them. Okay. So they've allowed us to kind of grow and build with them in some of those major projects that they're playing in. I mean, they're probably about 11 to 13 billion in revenue. Wow. That's a B.
That's a B.
Billion in revenue.
Billion, right.
And so being a mentee under them is probably the best situation we could have ever had. Okay. And on the adjusting side, when you call and maybe someone crashes a car or a storm comes through your neighborhood, all those people that scurry on the ground to try to make sure that your insurance claim is paid and make sure that you can get your estimates in back to your AIGs and State Farms, well, those are people that we provide. So we provide independent adjusters that come into catastrophes or just on daily claims as well.
Wow, wow. So now, this is your 7th business, but you just had a big win. You just sold.
You just sold
a multi-million dollar company.
And I had to get it ready for sale.
For a lot of pesos.
So
you
dineros were great.
Right. So you got to tell me, how is it that how have you kept the fire alive to want to keep
get back in there again?
Why would you start another business? Like, you won. You
I
got
won.
to sell your business. So why would you do it again?
You know, my drive and my passion is to employ people. And so I tell people, do not get into the business of a business or go into business to make money. It wasn't to make money, it was my passion is to employ people. I came from a very deprived environment, grew up deprived, and so I know that if I can turn people's lives around, it's by giving them employment. And so the reason why I was able to jump actually into it, I kind of didn't jump necessarily. I actually started 2 years or 3 years before I sold to build those brands, starting those brands up. But in order to sell, I had to do due diligence. And that means you need to scrub your books, scrub your people, and scrub to see if you're worthy of something. But I knew that and secondly, I'm young enough to be able to do it again. I know I wasn't going to be able to sit on the beach for about 2 or 3, 4 years and I'll be bored out of my daggone mind. So I needed to get back in the game.
I think I could do it.
I know you would want to. She's been in the beach with me, so I know she wants to do it.
I'm about the beach life.
But
I want to put that out there.
We can't retire this young without making the impact to life. And I know in 15 more years, we're going to be chatting again, and I know you're going to be still pressing to make sure small businesses is doing their thing. And so I'm hoping that my next 2 brands to also become multi-million-dollar brands and sell. And so I'm positioning both of those companies coming out of the gate for sale. I'm doing valuations as I start.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay.
How do you position a business to sell it, to one day sell it?
Well, the one thing you got to do is you got to make sure that your infrastructure is tight. There's nobody going to buy your business if infrastructure is weak. Wow. If you do not have the resources to scale, you're not going to be able to make it through the time. And so what I've done in each of the business, before we opened the door and started pulling employees in, we had sound processes: how to hire, how to fire, how to evaluate, how we want to market, how we don't want to market, who is our client base. And so we set up all of those called customer relationship management tools. And it takes money. We hired an accountant, we hired a lawyer. And they were lawyering and accounting on anything, right? But we were paying to make sure that the chart of accounts was going to be correct, that every single thing that was going to go through, whether it's receivables or not, that contracts and negotiations, especially on the construction side, that was the only industry that I knew that actually pays you 120 days. And that's good if you get that. Wow. So when people say construction firms go out of business quick, I know why. Because they pay them in 120 days. Wow. And so I had to bring lawyers in to look at contracts before I start negotiating with anybody to make sure things are favorable. And so we want to be able to bring that into light. And now, because it's a little easier when you do it the second, third time around, because my accountants are now positioned to look at everything at a clean slate. So I can't screw up anything yet, right? Because all the processes are new. And so the only thing we can do is adapt them as we grow. So as we bring in more people, if we start scaling in other states, looking at different employment laws, you need those people on your team.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? Let's talk about hiring, because I know as a small business owner, hiring is the biggest nightmare that I have.
Amen.
And every other entrepreneur I talk to tells me the exact same thing. You have hired hundreds and hundreds of people.
I have.
So tell me, what has been your secret to ferreting out whether people are a good fit for your business?
Well, and some people are going to say this is not a good thing, but I do hire slow and I fire fast.
Okay.
And I'm going to be honest with you. And the reason for that is because you can't just jump in a relationship. When you hire somebody, especially when you're looking at your key man staff, those people are going to be directly reporting to you versus line managers. You got to be able to make sure you have individuals that are going to be vested and trusted and in the same boat. I manage by a philosophy, and it's a book, a wonderful book called Traction. And if they haven't read it, they need to.
Okay.
Because it's a great methodology about making sure that everybody is on the same page and in the boat, steering together. You're going to have so many people in the boat sometimes that, and I did, that you don't know if the people in the back are even steering or if they're just sitting there going, look, I can't wait till this thing is over with so I can park my ticket, get my check, and go. And so, with that being said, I needed to make sure that certain things happened. They didn't see me when I interviewed. I was always the last person that interviewed them.
Right.
Because I needed to make sure 3 or 4 other people vetted them. And one of my people that vetted them was not even part of my company.
Okay.
We did a personality test. I met a gentleman about 9.5, 10 years ago who says you need to make sure you understand personalities of the people who are working with you. Because in Homeland Security, it takes a unique personality to deal with tragedy and to deal with bodies probably and the situation of being able to be responsive in a catastrophe.
Right.
And so you can't have someone there that's going to just start breaking down crying in the midst of we responding. And so we have to be able to have different personalities. So we did personality tests. And then the last thing we did is we wanted to see your family. We wanted to see who was behind you.
Wow.
Because in the event that we had to take you away for 2 to 3 months, is this stable?
Okay.
And if it wasn't stable or it appeared to be a picture that was too good to be true, most likely it was. So we counted in a lot of things. And then we also made sure that they knew there was a short-term contract of 30 days, 90 days, 60 days, 120, and then a year. And we did those evaluations to make sure for 2 things, that these individuals understood at any given time we can all separate and say goodbye.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And if we weren't meeting our objectives, then we didn't need to be together. And I firmly believe that. I've already had to terminate an employee on a construction company.
Wow.
But it wasn't, it was a separation because the match did not fit. And so when you know it doesn't fit, the one thing I tell you is don't force it.
Okay.
Because what you're going to do is just lose money and be pissed off at the end.
Oh, yeah. I know all about that.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
Now, I once heard you say that if you know math, you can run any business.
I will contest that if you are, I'm a businesswoman.
Okay.
I went to school for accounting and mathematics. And I truly know how to read the numbers. And I can tell you the best thing that's happened to me in every one of my businesses is to be able to look at a balance sheet, look at trial balances, performas, and statements and see where those numbers are telling me. And because of that, I have been blessed to open up a trucking company. I've opened up a nightclub, and all of those businesses have ran into the millions successfully. Now, I shut those down because when numbers didn't start lying, numbers can't tell you craziness. You know, my accountant could come in and tell me, Twyla, everything is great. Right. But I knew the retained earnings weren't telling me everything was great, right. Or the position statements that I was seeing on our weekly, profit and loss didn't make sense.
All right, but wait a minute. Now, in fairness, didn't you graduate with an accounting degree and a mathematics degree?
I sure did. I did.
So, average bear entrepreneur.
But this is where the average bear needs to understand. If that is not your forte, then you don't want to be cheap and you need to hire it. And then you also need to start learning. An average bear should know how to learn. Now, right?
True.
Okay, so if this is your business and this is your lifeblood, you need to understand 1 + 1 = 2. Because if you don't, somebody's going to take 1 + 1 and give you 5, and then subtract 3 and have 2 left, and then the 3 that you should have had in your pocket is in theirs. And so I know many women have belonged to several organizations that were $100 million businesses. And I remember sitting around tables with these women in these clubs I belonged to, and they're crying about how they just had someone embezzle $10 million. There is no way in hell you will move $1 out of Twyla Garrett's company without me knowing it.
Right.
Let alone 10 million.
Right. Now, I'm with that, and I know for my business, I check my bank accounts every day.
I know you
So
do.
if you steal from me, you would do it one time.
Exactly.
Because I would catch you.
And you would notice it every day. And
Yeah.
see, that young lady owned a large business. She was not savvy. She was not savvy in the numbers, and she trusted someone else to just tell her a story. And they told the story. So if you're going to be in business, regardless of whether you like numbers or not, you need to at least know how to address them.
Right.
And know how to validate if they make any sense.
Now, one of the things that I like to tell entrepreneurs is that by the 15th of the month, you need to know how well your business did
Absolutely.
last month. So you need to make sure that your bookkeeper or accountant, someone is giving you a cash flow statement,
Absolutely.
income statement, balance sheet every month.
We do a cash flow statement every week.
Wow.
Because depending on the cyclical business that you're in, if you're in retail, you should know every week where you're at because you're getting stuff coming in every day.
Right.
And so in the government contracting realm, you know, it could be between a 30 to 45 minute or 45 day delay in payables. So, you know, that was something. But normally I would tell people to get into the habit of at least doing it every week so they'll know what they're looking at. And then as their cycle changes, if nothing changes, that's fine. But that means you identify the bleeps as soon as it does change.
Got it.
Does change. It's key. No, the math will tell you everything.
Now, I know that you have a book coming out
I
later
do
this
have a
summer.
motivational book coming out. It's called My Mother's Words, How the Most Negative Influence Was My Most Positive Motivator. And you guys stay tuned for that. I hope to come back and talk to you about it.
We are gonna have you on Small Biz Chat when
Okay,
that book is
all
ready to
right,
come
I
out.
can't wait.
And I want you to come to Philadelphia because I'm gonna do a book signing
Absolutely.
for you too.
Oh, I would love to.
I'm gonna do a book
I would
signing
love
for
to.
you.
You got me.
Because that's how excited I am about
got
you
me.
telling people about your true rags to riches story.
Here's some rags. Seriously.
Well, you know, we all are products and victims of our environment.
Exactly.
Yes?
That's right.
All right. Well, listen, I thank you so much for
Thank you,
giving us your
sis.
time
Thank
and
you.
coming to hang out with us on Small Biz Chat Live. This has been a wonderful kickoff to our live
thank
show.
you so much. And I look forward to watching the rest of the show and hearing some of the chats that's going on. So,
All right.
Thank you, love.
Thank you so much.